Okay, hello everyone. Again, it says session 4, but don't worry if you haven't been here before, that's fine. I'm going to take you through what we've been to. Every session is about contemporary Israeli culture and art. Every session is a standalone, so you can definitely just enjoy this one or join us for the other. This is of 6. The next 2 ones will be about dance and about theater. We've already covered Israeli TV and Israeli music. And my name is Uri Levin. I work for the Masa Leadership Center. I'm also an educator and facilitator for many years now in the Jewish world. And I also hold a degree in theater and in art education. And I've been a theater producer for a while before working in Jewish education. So it's kind of funny, preparing for today, I found so many movies that a lot of my friends are either in or were part of the production. So I'm not going to do any name dropping or anything like that, but it's really nice to see that some of the friends that I went to school with or worked with has gone to be very successful in the Israeli film industry. When I'm going to talk about theater in my next session, this is going to be, of course, much more personal because I've been working in that field here in Israel. So let's begin with another thing that people know. If you've been to my sessions, please stop at any time. Put on questions on the chat. Feel free to ask questions, to make comments. The other thing that you need to know is that when we've learned throughout these sessions that the best way to go is, for me, every time that I want to show you a video, is to send you a link to the video so you can watch it on your own computer, because the streaming is working okay, but for some people it freezes, and I want you guys to see the videos. Most of the stuff that we do is based on videos because I want you to go see the movies afterwards. And at the end of this meeting, in about an hour, I'm going to send you a playlist with everything that I recommended on and more, and a way to contact me if you have any question. Also, the nice thing is that this session is being recorded. So if anybody wants to watch it later or send it to friends, you are definitely welcome to do so. So we'll start with a little bit about Israeli film. I'm not going to go into it because we're talking about contemporary film. Oh, hello. Somebody's writing Toda. That's kind of nice. Can you erase it because I'm not the administrator? Thank you. So today we're talking about cinema or film, or in Hebrew, kol noah. Kol noah is 2 words, kol, sound, and noah is to move, so moving on. Back in the old days when there was no sound, it was rei noah, looking at the movement. But this is kol noah. It's still a word that is being used today, kol noah. Most of the Israelis will say, ani olech lakol noah, I'm going to the movies. The first Israeli film before Israel was established. How is it possible? It's possible because, like a lot of other things that happen in the land of Israel, or Palestine, depends how you want to call it, during the British Mandate, there was already some form of autonomy for Jews. And the first films that we're talking about are films that are called Hebrew cinema. קולנוע עברי או קולנוע עברי, or as it says here in Hebrew, סרט עברי ראשון, זאת היא הארץ, this is the land, which is a half documentary, half like a movie, and it's of course very Zionist about like how beautiful this country is and building the country, and you can look at the photo and see how like utopian it is. So since then, a lot has happened, of course, in Israel. I do want to touch on one specific thing because from now on, we're going to talk about contemporary cinema here in Israel. And it's important to know that Israel has, we have our own kind of Oscars. It's called the Ophir Award. It started only in 1990. There were awards for movies beforehand, but it was the first time in 1990 where Israel, like the Israeli Academy for Cinema, started giving prizes like in other places, and it paved the way to pretty much have that official voice that is saying this movie should go to the Oscars, this movie should go to the festival, you know, and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's not as high budget, of course, as the Oscars, but you can definitely take a look at these and see the success of Israeli movies usually is, and you can see the correlation between the Ophir Prize and this one. Ophir Prize is named after Shaike Ophir, who is in this photo, in a movie called Hashoter Azulai that I highly recommend. It's from '71, so it's an older movie. And it was one of the first Israeli movies to ever be to be competing in the Oscars for foreign films. It won Golden Globe for Best Foreign Film in '71, when Israel was a much smaller country and its cinema wasn't as known in the world. It's a wonderful, beautiful movie. It's very old-fashioned. It's very '70s. It's a story about this Sephardic policeman who, because of racism, you know, in the very Ashkenazi Israel, is not being able to get promoted as a policeman, and he's trying and trying and trying. Beautiful, beautiful movie, beautiful, beautiful music. Anybody seen it before?
Avi.
What? Gaia, can you mute yourself? Thank you. And Shaike Ophir, who was the lead character there, known actor in Israel, comedian mainly, won a lot of prizes for this. And he passed away of cancer in the '80s. And this is the Ophir Prize after his name. Hello, hi, I see that people are coming and leaving, and that's great. Hi, Ellie, nice to see you. So this is about the Ophir Prize. I am talking a little bit about it because I just want you to understand how young the Israeli cinema industry is. And when later I'm going to start touching on newer movies, every once in a while I might say this won the Ophir Prize for Best Movie. Most of the movies that we're going to look at their trailers were somewhat connected to that prize. As I said before, we are going to talk about more of the contemporary, and we're going to start in 2007 and on, because that was the place where there was a huge shift in Israeli cinema. I was asked last time when we talked about TV, Israeli TV. You can find a lot of Israeli TV and a lot of Israeli movies on different streaming websites. Unfortunately, I don't know why. A lot of the movies that I'm going to present today were on Netflix for a long time, and for some reason lately have been pulled off. Some websites have them. If you have like a VOD of Yes or of Hot, if you're in Israel, you might be able to find some of them. I do not, of course, promote or encourage any torrents or online illegal downloads, but I know that a lot of people do. So I'm sure everything can be found also on those websites as well. Everything that I'm going to show you had international success and has translations to a lot of languages. And we'll go from there. As I said before, unless you have any other questions, let's jump in and start talking about the movies themselves. Any questions until now? Both either in the chat or, all right, there we go. We have a chat here, and we're going to start this time, not like the other sessions. If you've been to my other sessions, I don't usually go chronologically, but I thought this time it makes more sense to go from this first movie, the Benz, all the way until almost today. And we're gonna, anybody seen the Benz Visit? Do you know what it's about? Okay. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna send you the link to the trailer. Oh, I see. Julie, you saw it. Wonderful. So the Ben's visit. Let me put the trailer. 1 second. I'll put it for you guys. It'll take me 1 minute. There it is. So the Ben's visit. Everyone should get this now. Is an amazing, fairly small movie. You'll see the trailer in a minute and you'll see the story. It's an older trailer. The interesting thing about the Ben's visit is how big it got a lot of traction, a lot of price. It became a huge hit on Broadway. It became a musical on Broadway. It became a very big hit there. And here is the link. Watch it, and when you're done, like we've been in the past, when you're done, just a couple of you just write on the chat that you're done, and we'll kind of keep going. Hope you're going to enjoy. This is the Ben's visit in your chat right now. Right. I see. I got a private message that says that you guys are done. I highly recommend this movie. Thank you, Paulina. I highly recommend. Thank you. Oh, all of you are done. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Rebecca, for letting us know. Highly recommend to watch the movie because I think it has something that is, we're going to touch on this, and as we go further, you'll see that in the past, we're started in 2017, 13 years ago, where the Ben's visit is pretty much putting Israel on the map, kind of again. It had some really good movies beforehand. And the amount of prizes that it got, and the movies to follow almost every year since then. At least 1 or 2 Israeli movies are being world recognized for something, for either going to the Oscars or just having this huge success, both on the artistic side, where the critics really like it and they win prizes in festivals, or it's just doing well in terms of the box office. Again, these are foreign films, it's small films, It's low budget films in comparison to bigger films around the world. And that's what makes it special. Quite like Israeli TV that we spoke last time, the idea of Israeli cinema is that there is a lot of thought into the story and to the writing before the production starts. Because there's not a lot of budget in Israel, because the community of cinema makers or filmmakers is so small in Israel. So when you go and produce a movie in Israel, you should have a really strong story to start with. And when the story is good, your world and is universal. Sometimes you'll get quite a lot of world recognition for it. The next one was a movie.
Can I just
with
ask?
all of the film in English. Which one? The band's visit?
The band's visit.
I'm asking. Are we talking about the band's visit?
Yeah, the band's visit.
The band visit is in 3 languages: Hebrew, Arabic, the band is speaking Arabic to each other, Hebrew, where the Israelis are speaking to each other, and then they speak to each other in English and Arabic, because it talks about a small town in the periphery where there were a lot of Arab Jews, people who came from, Arab-speaking countries. So it's a very interesting movie that kind of puts the periphery of Israel like in the front stage, which is very, very, very interesting. The place, Bet HaTikva, doesn't exist, but it is a depiction of, a southern town in Israel. We're moving on to a very, very, very interesting movie that got a lot of recognition around the world. It's a mixture of a documentary of the story of Ari Folman, who was fighting in the first Lebanon War at the beginning of the 80s, who is just not being able to remember anything from that war. And he's interviewing his friends. Some of them are being, after, like, he's interviewing them, he's recording them. Some of them you can hear in the movie the real people talking. Some of them it's actors reenacting some of the recordings. But the idea behind it is that all of it is animation. But it's not like a Disney animation. It's like a hardcore animation with illusion of war, with everything that is happening. Very, very tough movie to watch, but very, very, very known in the world. It was a huge success in the world, both with the critics, but also in the box offices, and made Ari Folman to be one of the leading filmmakers, that kind of filmmaking, for a while. It's interesting, he made a couple more movies, great movies, and now lately, as far as I know, now with Corona, I don't know what will happen with it, but he is directing a theater play here in Israel, and it's going to be very interesting to see what will come out of this. So this is Waltz with Bashir, a half documentary, half animation. Enjoy. I see from you guys, Noam, Sarah, that you're done. I guess that the rest are done as well. Another thing, of course, I should say, as you see thank you, Ellie. As you see on the screen, I added a little icon at the right of the screen every time that we're talking about a film that not only is successful, but also won the best movie of that year in the Ophir Prize. Vasim Bashir was a very in the Oscars that year, but didn't win. But again, got a really, I'm talking about like the American Oscars as foreign film, but didn't win, unfortunately. We're gonna move on to the next film. And again, we're going. I'm not going by any main like theme or anything like that. Now we're going chronologically over like different years. I really want you to get as much as you can out of this and get to know some movies that you can watch now that we have some time at home. So the next movie that you will see when I'll send you the trailer, the real huge leap of quality of filming that is from from the band's visit, of course, Wallace and Bashir, that pretty much reinvented the genre of documentary animation, and now Footnote that won the Ophir Prize as well and went to the American Oscars as well, is a very different story. It's kind of a comedy drama that talks about Israeli Academy, that talks about researchers in the academy. It's a movie by Joseph Cedar, who's known in Israel. He's more of like a modern Orthodox Jew who wrote quite a lot of movies before this one, more about the modern Orthodox, Jewry in Israel. Movies like Time of Favor, Hahestel, it's called in Hebrew, that was very successful in Israel, or Campfire, Medulat Shevet. They were very critical of that, critical, but also opened a window to a lot of people to that kind of community. And in this movie, Footnote, he took us to a whole different journey of politics within the academy, about winning the Israeli prize, about ego. Very cute, wonderful movie about a son and a father, about learning. Very well filmed. And as you see now from the trailer that I'm going to let you watch, you'll see the jump, the leap between the first two trailers that we watched to this one, and the understanding in Israel and the ability in Israel and the amount of budget that is starting to be pulled into the Israeli cinema, to understanding how important it is to have not only a great story, but really good cinematography. So this is Footnote. Now in your chat. Okay, I see that Hazal and Ellie are done. Thank you. Awesome. I hope you liked it. It's a lovely, lovely movie. It's very different than what I've shown you beforehand, again, because it's more of a small story. Very well done, very cute. Again, went all the way to be one of the final foreign films in the American Oscars, and of course, the one an Israeli Oscar. By the way, the actors there are very well known in Israel. The funny thing for me was that some of the older like people of the academy were my teachers in theater school, which is kind of weird. It was weird to see them. And really, really, really good actors, both Lior Ashkenazi and Shlomo Baraba, known actors in Israel. We're going to move on to something completely different. Here, as the first, it's pretty much the first Israeli horror movie called The Big Bad Wolf. It had mixed reactions to in Israel, but mainly people really loved the fact that Israel is getting into like not talking about the conflict and not talking about Jewish stuff, but having a real horror movie happening in Hebrew in Israel. It got some traction from around the world as well. Again, you could up until about a couple months ago, you could get it on Netflix. I'm not sure you can anymore. I couldn't find it now when I was looking. But it is it's a movie with so many twists. It's very violent, but it is kind of cool to have, we are kind of joining the world in terms of like having horror movies. The other cute thing that is more personal for me is that it's two filmmakers, Aaron Keshles and Navot Papushado. And Navot Papushado went to high school with me. And then in Tel Aviv University when I was studying theater there. So it's kind of funny to see, I became a Jewish educator and he became a real legit filmmaker. And they both, Kashles and Papushado, both are still filming and directing stuff together, which is amazing. And here is the trailer for Big Bad Wolves, or Mi Mefached Me'azev Hara in Hebrew. Enjoy. All right, Sarah, Rebecca, Ellie, you're done. Thank you. Again, a different kind of movie, very different than anything else that I'm showing here today. But like horror movies, go for it. We are moving now to something completely different, but something that is very much on Israeli cinema was doing for a while, which is talking about the conflict from many, many directions. You can say that Bethlehem from 2013 is one of the most successful ones to have a very strong story that shows all sides almost of this thing, that is confusing, that is frustrating, that is, by the way, a lot of the actors here kept on going, both the Arabic and both the Muslim, Arabic and Jewish actors went to go into being on Fauda. Some of the faces here, if you've watched Fauda before, the TV series, you'll recognize some of the faces in the trailer, in the movie. And I am not going to talk a lot about it more than the idea that I think Bethlehem and other movies like Bethlehem are movies about the conflict that is kind of jumping into the conflict with and having, of course, an agenda, a political agenda, but also starting to look at all sides as both heroes and victims. And it's very complex. It brings a lot of attention. It brings a lot of politics, and it brings a lot of emotion and a political debate. But I think, again, with a good story and the worldwide success that this movie has gotten, both on like winning numerous prizes both in Israel and abroad, Bethlehem is one piece that, if you want to kind of jump in a little more to the complexity of the conflict, it's a fairly good movie to watch. This is Bethlehem for 2013. The trailer in your chats right now. All right, I see that you guys are done. Again, Bethlehem, Very, very interesting movie. By the way, also something about Bethlehem before we move on. I've been part of what I was doing both in the military and then on reserve as being in intelligence forces. I can tell you that the movie depiction of how the Israeli intelligence works with, working with agents and stuff like that is fairly accurate, which is really interesting as well. So what you see is not a true story, but something that is based on units that do exist and methods of recruiting and using agents in real life here in Israel. Now we move on to something much lighter. We're still in the army, military, but in 2014, something new and interesting came to Israel, which is the movie Zero Motivation. Zero Motivation is also, I think, the beginning. It's not the first time, but it's pretty much the beginning of Israeli female filmmakers that are writing and directing their movies with stories that are not necessarily, especially when you speak about Israeli military and Israeli army, it's not stories of heroes and it's not stories of war and it's not stories of any of that. We are talking here about a story of the rest of the soldiers, especially the women in the army, and what do they do and how do they experience the army. Zero Motivation, it was a huge success in Israel. It's a very funny and fun comedy. If you watch it, I do want to, I don't know if it's a warning. A lot of Israeli movies are very triggering, but this one has a little bit of a triggering, it has a little bit of, let's call it sexual aggression. It's not like rape or anything like that, but that might be a little triggering, but it's such a small piece of the movie. Vladi is saying he's not sure it's a comedy. Write me next time that we meet. What do you think? This is the trailer of Zero Motivation. Again, the story of the soldiers, especially women, that you don't usually see. Ellie, it seems like you liked it. Yes, it is a great movie. Wonderful. So, the next one is also a movie being done by a woman or a married couple, Ronit El-Kabetz, who's unfortunately passed away a few years ago from cancer, is known pretty much to be in the past 2 decades, like since the end of the 90s, to be one of the best Israeli filmmakers. She is the person that you see on the screen at the moment, Ronit El-Kabetz, and this movie is part of a trilogy. I'm not going to go into it, but Get is the get, not the taxi get or get something, but the idea of divorce, like the Jewish divorce. And most of this movie is being filmed, like the idea of it, that most of the scenes that you see are in the Rabbanut, of a trial of someone who's trying to get the Jewish get, the Jewish divorce, and being moved around by different groups of men because her husband is not, giving her the get, not giving her the divorce. And by Jewish law, he's entitled to just like keep her married for years and years if he wants to. And this whole story, and it's a very tough movie. It's a slow movie. But I think that if you want to see one of the greatest Israeli actors, Ronit El-Kabetz, in action, this is a very good opportunity for it. And also, it's also a very touching and drama, and it got a lot of it won a lot of prizes, and she went around with it pretty much around the world, winning different prizes for it, for her acting and for the movie itself. This is Get, and again, as I said before, the beginning of a very big, beautiful wave of Israeli female filmmakers talking about stuff that bother them in a daily life in Israel. The link is in your chat right now. All right, thank you, Ellie. Again, thank you, Paulina. Again, as I said, this is like a very different movie, but it kind of takes you into Carmen, you liked it. Great. So again, this is part of like three. There's three movies with this, with kind of the same character. One about a shiva, one about the get, and another one about one of the holidays. I forgot. But in general, it's part of like a series. But this one was like the most successful and the biggest one of them all. And the other thing that I think is important to say about it, because we are talking about contemporary culture, and pretty much all form of art talk about things that are happening in Israel or in, you know, in the culture or the world that is around us. One of the things this movie is being part of this whole big wave of conversation in Israel about non-religious people having to deal with the religious establishment over things that maybe the religious establishment shouldn't be touching on, like deciding if you're still married or not. Is it a civil thing or is it a religious thing? And it's a bigger conversation, of course, we're not going to get into it, but the idea that there's a movie, very successful movie, bringing it to the front stage and bringing it to the main conversation of Israel was a big thing in terms of like the Israeli society. We're going to move on to something that is kind of staying with that realm of the complexities of our society in Israel. A very, very cute, small, beautiful movie named Dancing Arabs, Mukti, which is based on a book that is being written by a journalist that if you've been with me in prior sessions, I've talked about Said Kashua. Said Kashua wrote a lot of books and wrote the very successful Israeli TV show, comedy show named Arab Labor. And this movie from 2014 was a very successful movie here in Israel, critically acclaimed around the world. A small movie that kind of talks about the complexity of Arabs living under Israeli or Jewish rule in Israel, how it looks like, what racism looks like, what love looks like, all through the eyes of a young couple. So this is Dancing Arabs, very, very cute movie. Enjoy. The link is in your chat. All right, I see that you are done. Cute movie, heartwarming, and nice, and sad because of the reality that we live in. I want to jump back to another reality. Are you guys done? And just have a couple more people just text me, say that you're done. Oh yeah, thanks, Paulina. Another interesting thing, again, talking about, yeah, I see the like, Ellie, thank you. Another thing, if we're talking about female filmmakers, we have Rama Burstein, who this what I'm going to show you now is the trailer of her second film. Rama Burstein is not only the first female, is of course a female filmmaker, but she is one of the first female filmmakers to come from the Orthodox world, meaning telling a Jewish Orthodox woman telling a Jewish Orthodox story. The actors around her are mostly secular, you know, being actors acting as more religious people, but Noah Kohler, the main actress here, is really amazing in this movie. It's a wonderful movie. Again, not a huge one, but a very heartwarming story about love, about religion, about tradition, about community, and about a very stubborn lady who is deciding that no matter what, she's getting married, even if she doesn't have a group. It's a really, really lovely movie. Again, especially in my opinion, Noah Kono is the actress is giving an amazing, amazing acting, performance here. Now in your chat, enjoy. Wonderful. I see that you guys are done. I hope you enjoy that one. I highly recommend it. I personally like the movie, but of course, as we say in Hebrew, "Al ta'am ve'al reach ein להתווכח." You can't argue on your taste and the smell. Like what you like is what you like. So the next thing is, again, we're saying, and I'm not, this one, I have to say, it's not that I have any agenda or anything like that. I'm talking about like going through preparing for this session. went through like the movies that stood out in the past 13, 15 years in Israel, and it seems like that in the past few years you see more and more women coming to the front stage. And if we talk about the first Orthodox woman to make movies, In Between was a movie that was very well received around the world, critically acclaimed, a movie about three Arab women living in Yafa, living in a Jewish setting or living in an Arab part of Tel Aviv, and how they deal with the world between the world that they came from into the world that they live in, or like all that tension in between. And the interesting thing about it, again, if we were talking about which first Orthodox Jewish woman, over here we have the first Arab female filmmaker in Israel making a movie of that scale. So this is In Between. Again, more on a personal note, it's really nice. The lady on the right on your screen, her name is Mona Chava. I was the production manager of the musical department in a big school of arts named Betzvi, acting school, and she was one of the students there. Always beautiful, very talented, very good singer, by the way. It's not, you don't see it in this film, but Mona Chava came to be, she had a couple of shows, like TV shows that she was heading, she was the head of, and but the other actors, well, I think she's the best there. This is In Between, the story of three Arab women in a very modern Jewish world. Carmen, if it's an English film, the film, a lot of films in Israel, I don't know why you're asking this, but a lot of films in Israel, again, because of budgeting and stuff like that, usually they use other resources like British funds, French funds, stuff like that. I'm going to show a film that is definitely like a co-production in a minute, a co-production of Israel and Germany for that matter. This film is in Arabic most of the time, the one that you just watched. In Arabic and a little bit of Hebrew. Oh, because the website, some of the trailers that I'm showing you are just trailers that were done for a specific audience, and I wanted them to have subtitles. That's all. So the next one is the next movie that we're going to talk about, called named Maktub, which is a word in Arabic, even though this whole movie is in Hebrew. Maktub meaning it's written. This movie was not critically acclaimed. It was not in the Israeli Oscars. It was not in any of this. Still, it was the most successful film of 2017 and 18 in Israel because of Hanan Savion and Guy Amir, who are the filmmakers, and another person named Oded Raz. But Hanan Savion and Guy Amir seem to be understanding what Israeli popular culture is. They created very successful Israeli TV shows, a couple of very successful movies, and they're pretty much taking on something that happened in the 70s and 80s in Israel called burekas films. Burekas, like the burekas that you eat. Movies about the low lives of Israel, the bad neighborhoods, the people who you usually don't see on this like very artsy-fartsy movies, more of the people of Israel. But because of that, these movies, usually comedies, were super successful, and they pretty much bringing this one in, but in a much higher quality. So even though the Academy, who could be a little bit of snobs, kind of passed on putting them in the different competitions and stuff like that, you can compete with the enormous success this movie had with almost no publicity, no nothing. This one is Maktub, and you will see it's more of a kind of a funny crime comedy about these two guys who, decide to go to the kotel, pick out notes that people put as wishes, and grant the wishes for them. That's the premise of this thing. Very funny, very cute, very not taking life too seriously. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Maktub in your chat right now. And this is almost the last one. The next one is going to be the last, and then of course open to questions, and we're going to send you off for your evening. This is the link in your chat of Maktub. All right, I see that you are done. Wonderful. Great, Ellie, thank you. And Rebecca and Hazara. We're gonna finish this session with, and please don't, Yeah, Mark wrote to me that looks amazing. It is a funny movie, and it is again, it's more of a like a crime comedy, funny, very not politically correct Israeli movie, which I personally really love when people don't take themselves too seriously, even when it comes to the arts. Um, the last, but not least, for this session is a very, very, very successful Israeli movie, both here in Israel and around the world. I think considered to be one of the best Israeli movies made in the last decade, called Ha'ofem Berlin, the Baker of Berlin, or the Cake Maker in its international name. Um, it's a beautiful story. It's a co-production of Israeli and German film companies or film production companies. It's all taking place in two main places, in a bakery in Berlin and a coffee shop in Jerusalem, and everything that happens in between. I will say this unfortunately, this trailer that I'm going to show you has tons of spoilers in it. So if you do want to watch the movie without ruining it, I'm not sure you want to watch the trailer. But if you don't mind that much, which usually I don't, just watch the trailer, enjoy it, and watch the movie because it's a really lovely, lovely movie. Again, it can be confronting because of some of the stuff that is in it. Has to do with, of course, sexuality and a lot of other things. That, by the way, Israeli film is very good at. I didn't touch on there's so many other films in Israel, and the list is endless. But talking about sexual things, I think this one is a very interesting and beautiful story being told. And again, just good filmmaking. So this is the Cake Maker or the Baker of Berlin, Ha'ofem Berlin. And please come back when we're done. I'm going to give you a link to the list and open up for conversation if you want. And we're going to say goodbye right after this. So this is the Cake Maker in your chat right now. Ellie, I see that you liked it. It is a beautiful movie. Rebecca, yeah. It is. It's really, even through the trailer, you can see that it's this one is a special one, and I'm not saying it just because I liked it personally. It was a huge success, and it won numerous prizes. It's really, and of course, won the Israeli Oscars as well. And this is where our session is coming to a close. I'm happy to take any questions. If you have any, both, you can write it on the chat or just unmute yourself and talk. While we're doing this, this is on your chat right now is the playlist to everything that we watched today and a couple more films that you can watch. And any questions, any comments that you want to make before we are saying goodbye for now? I will say that our next session is going to be sometimes next week. To be honest, I don't know when. We're kind of building the schedule as far as the education department is building the schedule as we speak. So next week, we're going to talk about Israeli contemporary dance, which is very artistic, and Israeli theater, the theater that is being done in Israel. And surprisingly, it's not surprisingly, but it's very nice to know that Israel is one of the big powerhouses of theater today. A lot of people in Israel go to the theater. There's a question, Paulina, how can you access the recording, and is there any way to access the previous 3 sessions? I only just gained access to the platform yesterday. So I don't know what other recordings we have. I know that some of it was recorded. I can put my email here, and please send me an email tomorrow. So I'll check with the department and see what we already have on that is recorded. And if it's not, I'm always happy, by the way, I'll tell all of you, I don't know if you're part of a program that is still in Israel or you're back home. I'm happy to run any of these sessions for you in a group. Just bring a bunch of people, or let's have a group of people, like let's say more than 5. And I'll be happy in an evening to come and do these sessions again for you. It's ready to go. The links are ready. I'm happy to do it. So I'm putting my email down here. Please write to me even now, but only tomorrow I'll be able to kind of check stuff for you. And I'll be able also to send you more links to other playlists that I made, like of TV shows, of Israeli music and such. So this is my email. Please contact me, uril@masaisrael.org. Mark, you're asking, is there any way we can make a WhatsApp group to share thoughts and maybe more movies? I'm not sure. Write me an email and I'll check tomorrow. I think it's a matter of like everybody have their own, everybody wants to keep their private information to themselves. But if people are interested, write me an email and we can maybe even open a Facebook group that we can write to each other and discuss. The previous sessions were, the first one was a introduction to contemporary Israeli culture. And I talked about several things, like a couple of films, just to kind of give you an understanding of what's happening today in Israel. Then we did a session about music, Israeli pop music, and what it has to say about what is happening in Israel, music from the past 5 years, the playlist and everything. And then we did, the last one was about Israeli contemporary TV shows, the most successful TV shows today in Israel, and what do they say about us as Israeli, and what interests Israelis when they open their TV, and why is Israeli TV so successful around the world, being bought by everybody from Netflix to HBO. And today we did about films, and the next couple ones will be about dance and theater, which are very big in Israel, not as big as films and TV, but big enough in Israel to discuss. I hope that answers your question, Paulina. Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to put the list again here on your chat. Enjoy it. Write to me whenever you want, and I'll try to answer your questions as fast as I can, and hopefully we'll be able to send you either links to recordings or at least lists of like the different YouTube lists that I sent to everybody with recommendations to TV, music, and film. Everybody, thank you. You've been great as always. It's always fun, and invite your friends to come to the next one. And again, if you want me to run it to your friends or to a group of people that you know, write to me in the email and I will gladly set a time to do it with you over Zoom. Be healthy, be safe,